Hey, welcome to the Join the Journey podcast. I'm Aaron Chase. I'm the host of the podcast. Real quick before we start the episode, I just made an Instagram specifically for the podcast. So it's JTJ Pod on Instagram. And I want to start growing the podcast. I want more views. I want more people to watch and enjoy it and get to know all of these Chicago comedians. So if you could follow the Instagram and share all of these clips and these pictures and these videos as much as possible, that would be greatly appreciated. All right, let's start the episode. So you started something like this in the pandemic?
It was basically right before pandemic. January 2020, I started my own podcast. Kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
I just like comics. I like talking to comics, and it's funny you mentioned the whole like not being funny all the time kind of thing, because it's like, yeah, you want to talk to comics and you want them to be exciting, but at the same time, you can see somebody be funny on stage, and you talk to them and you're like, damn, you're very uninteresting. Like, I just like you write better jokes than you are as a person. Just I don't know.
No, I get you. When did you start stand up?
So I first got on stage March 2017 in college.
Okay.
And then didn't get on stage again until October of 2017. This is back in Maryland. Got on stage a few times around D.C. and Baltimore that year, and then moved to Chicago in October of 18. So I technically consider Chicago my start, because that's really when I got. I mean, I was driving like 2 hours one way just to do mics in D.C. Back in Maryland, there was a whole fucking bumfuck scheduling, and yeah.
So you're from Maryland originally?
Yeah.
Okay. You grew up out there. That was your place of residency.
Born and raised.
Were you like always into stand-up, or how did that get started for you?
Fan of it for sure. I didn't even know really what stand-up was, as far as like in college. I just decided to type in Dave Chappelle into Pandora Radio, and it was the first time I'd ever heard stand-up comedy, first audibly, and then in bits.
How old were you?
19.
That was the first time you heard.
Listened to it. Like I'd only seen comedy as specials. I just watched Chappelle walk out and just talk. I watched these people, and I was a fan of comedy, but to hear it from the audio aspect of it, and then to hear every bit of the special broken down into bits, like to hear a JFL set with a joke, and then hear the album dropped later, and then hear that different version. It was the first time it kind of really broke it down into little chunks, and
gotcha.
Then I got into podcasts, and then the whole just opened up.
It sounds like initially, and I think a lot of people do this, including myself. Initially, it was like, stand-up is when famous people get on stage at HBO. And,
it didn't, and the idea of like what went into like building an hour or doing like having a stand-up career, and it's just like, and then figuring out like actors that did stand-up and listening to their albums, and it opened up a world of.
When you went to college, were you interested in stand-up, or was it something like, what were you going to college for?
To get drunk, just stupid bullshit. But I was just in school fucking around, I'm a child of immigrants. I had to go to college, and I wanted to get a job. And I was always a fan of, comedy entertainment, and I always liked, just laughing, dicking around with the boys and geeking out. And once I realized what the pursuit of comedy was, I was in school about to finish my degree, and I was like, all right, if I can just secure a job, give myself 10 years, if you can't make one person laugh or can't make one single dollar doing comedy, you should have learned enough that you can just go back to the beach, open a comedy club, drink beer, watch comedy until you die, and then fourth mic in, I was like, all right, I'm hooked. And
okay, all right, I'm piecing this together. So family of immigrants, where are they from?
Ethiopia,
okay. And obviously they want you to go to college and be a doctor?
Doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Those are the classics. And then you went to college. What was the degree in?
Initially pharmaceuticals, and then I ended up changing it to business management. And I went to a small liberal arts private party school, so just like it's like a fake degree. My degree is irrelevant, and
So, but you do have the degree.
I guess, yeah.
Good for you for finishing it. I mean, when you get to the home stretch, and you're like,
I finished it in 4 years with no DUIs, no stomach pumpings, a couple citations, but it's all
very proud of you.
Yeah.
So
my mom.
So you're in college, you're doing your thing, you're partying, and just kind of not giving a fuck. And then comedy kind of comes into play into the psyche around 20.
Yeah, just about. I was listening to comedy constantly between like 19 and 21, and then I got the internship for the job that I was like, you have to get an internship before you graduate. And right before I started that internship, I was just like, I don't know if I want to do this, whatever else. I was like, all right, let me. And I know, again, it comes with that immigrant parent thing where it's like my dad is very supportive of arts and entertainment, things like that. My brother's hip-hop choreographer. My little brother's a screenwriter. My other brother's in film and what else. It's so like as a family basis, entertainment was always a kind of important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, all right, well, I mean, as long as I pay my student loans and pay my rent and feed myself, then nobody should really care what I do on my own free time.
Yeah.
In the pursuit of this thing.
And is your family, have they accepted it?
Oh yes,
Okay.
yes, sincerely so. Yeah. I remember asking my dad. I was like, "Do you want me to use like an alias? Because I'm going to say some wild shit." And he was like, "Nah, put my name on that shit. Fucking let it rip. If it's funny, then go." And
good for you, man. That's
it's
awesome.
fun. Yeah. I'm thankful. I'm very, very thankful because I talked to a lot of other Ethiopian kids at my age, and they're like, "Yo, how do your parents feel about this?" And like to explain that they're cool with it, they're like, "Damn, it must be nice." And
culturally, I mean, have you gone back to Ethiopia?
yeah, I've been a few times. I was just there in January, and I don't know what the follow-up question was as far as the cultural part, but I mean, yeah, I think that is a very unique, what do you call it, like enthusiasm or dialect in the way that people like communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Like my first language was Amharic, the language of Ethiopia, but I kind of faded out. Racism kind of like forced that shit out of me, my brothers and I. But the way that my family talks about how funny my dad is in Amharic, it's like just like a certain cadence and tone, and certain word choice and things like that. And I think humor is very important in the culture as far as communication.
Yeah, okay. So there's two things I was gonna ask. We'll do a double feature here.
Okay.
So the first thing was culturally, what is it about these immigrant parents that push their kids the way they do? And then the other question, and we can really dig into that, was you lost the language because of racism and bullshit. But I want to hear about the culture. So like culturally, because I this is a consistent thing amongst comics who are immigrants or have immigrant family members. This like almost like they've really bought into the American dream. I
mean, again, you're talking to most people that do find or fight their way to come here they're not leaving a chill environment. They're leaving something very, very fucked up. And it's like even like now getting older and understanding like what was going on at the time that my parents did come to Ethiopia, did come to America, and if you talk to anybody who's a child of immigrants, yes, education and opportunity was here, but it wasn't there, and it was like extremely not there to the point in which traveling thousands of miles, dealing with fucking language barriers, all that bullshit, and it's like, so I can understand why parents would be hesitant to support, but at the same time, that's why you're here, and like the opportunities that you gave and sacrificed for are for these. It's America, bro.
It's okay. And then maybe this will transition well into the whole racial thing, especially if you listen to this podcast at all or have heard my opinions, you know how I feel about race and America and all that. This is a thing I keep hearing from immigrant comics who are like, look, my parents came from this, and this, and there is an appreciation of America that I think I don't personally have.
Understandably so.
Yeah, it's like I acknowledge. I don't like the whole, well, at least you're here, not stuck in Africa where you're poor and there ain't no water. It's like, that's real insulting to an entire continent. I don't like that shit. And it's also...
And I don't mean to cut you off. Yeah. I understand why you don't like it, but like, my parents left that shit.
Right.
And like, it's like, and also even just going back as an adult and understanding what the fucking bullshit that exists. I mean, my brother and I were there for a wedding, and we're walking back from this bar, and the hotel we were staying at was right across from like a European Union.
Okay.
And we're walking, and my cousin's with us, so she speaks the language. She lives in Ethiopia. And my little brother's like, oh! And he just sees this cop crack this dude in the head. Mm. And my cousin could hear the whole thing where they were like, move. He's like, no, move, no. And then they start beating the shit out of him.
And wait, where is this again?
In Ethiopia.
This is in Ethiopia. Okay.
And again, police brutality exists all over. We all know it exists in America too, but it's just like there is a different version of actual, what do you call it? Accountability as far as like
the police officer.
Not even the police officer, but in America, what we have and don't have. So like, I remember like being like a young like activist kid, being like, "Fuck America, fucking Canada's better, Australia's better." My dad's like, "There's a fucking big old line of people waiting to get here." Mm-hmm. And it comes with age and perspective. And the thing is, I empathize with Black Americans that are definitely more so fucked up than immigrants that come here. There's a lot of systemic things that have situated Black Americans in a bad position that I can completely empathize with as far as like, fuck this, fuck that. But at the same time, I do want people to know that, if following the right steps, America does have those things you want and need as far as doing what you want to do, rather than other. I mean, not. And it's, again, I haven't been to other continents or countries and things like that. I'm sure as far as education goes, we're fucked. As far as certain other things, we are fucked. But there's a reason everybody wants to be here. And again, there's a reason why the smartest come here, get the things they want, and then leave and go back and then change their own places based on what they learned while being here. And
when you say the right steps, what do you mean?
That's a fun question. I'm happy. I know. And
by the way, before you start, I don't want to. It's not an attack. I'm trying to understand. Yeah.
I think that's more so. It's like the amount of magical American stories that exist are given to those that utilize the tools around them to excel in whatever it is they wish to excel in, whether it be arts, sports, culinary, whatever the case may be. And it just so happens that obviously it is harder based on socioeconomic issues and racial issues and things like that. But if the desire and support system is there, and then this is where it comes down to familiar, the power of family, the power of a parental support system, the power of community and things like that, and even like just negative influences like that. That's probably one of the aspects of being a disenfranchised group in a country that has so much opportunity, that negating that the opportunity exists is more toxic than supporting or pushing towards, achieving a new goal or achieving or stepping out of your comfort zone. It's like, it's very easy to say, woe is me. Fuck this, fuck that, we're fucked, get fucked, don't do anything. Fuck it, why even try? But, I mean, if you have that support system there, and, it sounds very short-sighted to say take the right steps, but if you do follow the steps necessary to excel in whatever it is you wish to, even not excel in, but explore, America gives you that.
I think...
And I'll tell you this. And this is also like, I know. Well, this is something else, too, that I don't take for granted. I was very blessed with where I was raised. Like, in Maryland, like, the public schooling system we had, all these things. Like, I had family friends who grew up in the Atlanta, like, where, I don't know where you're from originally.
Riverside, California.
Riverside, okay. So Riverside might be a little bit different. I'm not exactly sure as far as that goes, but I've heard about certain just public school experiences in certain parts of the country that can really fuck up the opportunities you have available to you, and the way that the system is set up, and it's like the extra steps and effort people have to make to go and be in certain educational systems to allow them to even get out of that bad space. It's like, that shit's fucked up, obviously, but...
I think for me, so I grew up, a little bit about me, I grew up Riverside, California, in a burb/desert is how I describe it, and I grew up around what old school, like, Norman Rockwell American dream looks like to the way it's perceived. Yeah. Where I'm in a middle class, mixed with like lower middle, upper middle. I would say I was about middle class, as middle as you could be, and I was surrounded by white people, and there was this, like, I don't think you're presenting it in a toxic way. I think I would say this idea that, like, you have these opportunities here, work hard, put in effort, have your dreams, don't give up, don't blame a bunch of other people for your individual problems. I agree with you. I think the thing that I struggle with all of this is that I think white people will take that concept and they'll manipulate it they'll twerk it in such a way where it's like, the idea
that white privilege doesn't exist because you can always just pull yourself up by the bootstrap.
Pull yourself by all the bullshit.
And
so I think what makes, when I hear the way you describe it, my little ears perk up and I get kind of iffy, only because anytime I've heard that presented, it's always been in the most manipulative, a non-constructive way possible. But I hear you. I hear what you're saying.
I think this is like in the strangest aspect of being literally an African American in America that literally never had to deal with like colonization or impact that, like, all these facets. And it's like the same mentality that I have is the same mentality that a Chinese kid has or a Mexican kid has. And it's like all these factors of racism and systemic issues impact all of us. And again, I don't want, an Asian child of immigrants to be like, these black guys complain too much.
Yeah.
My parents fucking were in rice farms. Now I'm here and I'm in Harvard. It's like, no, fuck. There actually is definitely a systemic issue, but at the same time, it's like a balance of empathy and also at the same time accountability.
Yeah, I think you used the right word, man. It's balance. It's balance.
Yeah.
And then I promise this whole episode is not going to be about race. But you also said you lost what was the language again?
Amharic.
So you can't say anything in
I understand more than I can speak.
Okay.
And I realized that when I was in Ethiopia, where like I'll never pretend that I can speak a language that I don't.
Yeah.
So I would just play dumb, and then I'm like fucking around, and I'm at these bars, at these clubs. I'm like, I know what these niggas are saying. Like I know, like, and it surprised me, but at the same time, it's a very hard language. And yeah, so my older brother and I, it was our first language. We're in the eastern shore of Maryland, so it's like, the boonies, the sticks, and he goes to school, and the teachers are like, oh, he's retarded, and they're like, yeah.
That's literally what they would say back in the day.
That's literally, yeah.
Literally
It was their late 90s, early 2000s, and my parents are college educated. My dad's an English major, my mom's, got a master's degree, and they're like, oh, fuck this. We're not going to allow this to impede their, acceleration in school. And, my grandmother lived with us, and she didn't speak English, so, like, we were constantly surrounded by it, but at the same time, there was a lot of... We also didn't grow up in, like, a full-fledged Ethiopian community, as most do, like, in the D.C. area. I always say that Ethiopians are to D.C. the same way Polish are to Chicago. And...
I think I figured... Through what you just said, I think I figured out my issue.
Okay.
In order for you to succeed, you were literally perceived as retarded because you were expressing, your brother was expressing part of his culture.
Well, no, it was just literally a language barrier situation.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, because we were in such a small community, if we were in a major metropolitan area, they'd be like ESL. If we were in the PG DC area, they'd just like put them with Ethiopia. They would know that this is an Ethiopian. But we are in the eastern shore of Maryland to the point in which people didn't know what the fuck Ethiopia was, besides a fucking UNICEF commercial.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, so...
I think my issue is the requirement of assimilation for success. So I hear you. If in a city there's some wiggle room there, but then comes the city problems as well. It's that the way they, and I again acknowledging the city versus sticks thing, the way they perceived you because of your culture is wrong. And until you get rid of your culture and strip yourself from your language and your history and your clothes and your hair, they want to strip everything from you and homogenize you into what this little box is for their comfort. Then you can be successful. And that's my issue.
Yes, and that's the fun part about doing, pursuing a different career outside of what they want me to do, where it's like, I know how to... I've been lucky enough to, like, obviously benefit from that assimilation, that forced assimilation.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel grateful to have, been the exposure to the white... At the same... It's like, I feel bad for all cultures that force themselves into their pockets of community without ever actually experiencing things that are outside of themselves. Whether you're a country hillbilly white guy that's never talked to somebody from Ethiopia or somebody in a Muslim country or whatever the case may be, or you're Spanish speaking only, you don't talk to black, whatever the case may be, it's like all of the assimilation on all ends helps everyone grow and learn more about their community and about perspective and about similarities that go between all ends. And it
was very beautiful. Hold on, let me just Well, yeah, why are you doing that? I agree with you. I used to, so when I used to write, my primary goal wasn't to be funny. It was to make a point and try to change them. I grew up around white people. My stand-up was a lot of me explaining to white people why my life mattered. And I found that to be ultimately a waste of time and energy. Like, one, it wasn't, I had jokes or whatever, but it wasn't nearly as funny as it could have been. I wasn't putting funny first. Mm-hmm. And two, you're not going to convince nobody nothing in a 5-minute comedy set. Yeah. It was really silly. But how are you feeling about your career? Where you're at this point?
I mean, I'm obviously happy that I get to make money doing comedy, that I've gotten this far in the time I have amidst the pandemic, amidst all these things. It's like the way that shit kicked my stride in the dick, like where I was. I had
kicked your stride in the dick?
Yeah, like I was like, I'd been in Chicago for 2 years. I had got the job that I wanted. I had a company car. I was like, oh, like I can hit this amount of mics a night. I had gone to New York, done mics in New York, and I was like, all right, I'm finally moving. And then everything comes. Comedy's illegal. Car sales is an essential job.
Yeah.
There's a fucking disease that might kill me.
Yeah.
I'm living in a garden unit, taking acid and drinking bourbon by myself. Black Lives Matter starts. I've got on like family mental health stuff that's going on, and I'm like, all these things were coming on at once, and I'm like, bro, just bring comedy back so I can actually like give this another go. I mean, I was convinced comedy was gone.
Forever.
I don't know, man. It was a weird. It was a weird time, and at the same time, like when the things did start to come back, that was a whole different thing. Where like all of a sudden there's new people. People quit. People literally got sick and died. People had to move. Their lives changed. Income changes. It was wild. I was thankful to have a job, but
yeah, man, that transition for because the comics I've talked to that were here pre-pandemic and here not for like I started in a couple months and then I mean like in the scene and then COVID hits and the way they view things post-COVID. Like I'm a new guy showing up. It was interesting seeing the changes. Like what do you think the biggest changes were pre-COVID versus post-COVID in Chicago?
Well, I'd say a lot of new people popped up out of the woodworks. I think that, oh man, I think that what it was is like every comedian who had already been doing comedy was like, oh, great to be back. I cherish this thing so much. And then everybody else who watched their life kind of just go away, and or they were just a young person who, like, their life was impacted, but like not thwarted, if that makes sense. Like they like probably finished their last year of their senior year of college at home, did virtual Zoom. It's not like no one really knew what was going on with jobs or things like that. So they were kind of like in a comfort zone space that they like could decide, what do I want to do? It's like, oh, I might move to the city when things open back up and start doing comedy. And it's like, that happened with, I'm sure, a lot of people. People did move out of the city. People moved all over the place, changed their entire lives, moved to Austin, moved to wherever. And I don't know. I mean, the amount of new people that came in with the excitement on life was interesting to see in real time.
Yeah.
Because, Lincoln Lodge just opened back up and you're just like, who the fuck are all these people?
Yeah.
And, people started doing Zoom. When I met comics and their first mics were on Zoom.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
And then they're coming out and they're like, oh, this is different than Zoom. I'm like, you shouldn't have been doing Zoom. And,
You think that was a bad idea for any of them to start with Zoom?
To start comedy in Zoom?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. No. You got to start it at a bar and you have to be bumped 12 times.
Yeah.
And then you got to eat your dick. And then you got to meet a friend, and then you got to go to the next bar, and then do it again, and then you do that for. And again, there's a lot of. It's every legitimate comic that was making bread on Zoom. Shout out to you. I mean, I wish I was ballsy enough to just bomb my way through 10 minutes on a Zoom call for $150. I would have loved to do that all throughout COVID, but to imagine that being my intro to what comedy is.
Yeah.
And then to go into, and then, obviously the real world was different where when comedy did come back, they had the fucking, spacers at Laugh Factory, the plastic shields. People had masks on, so you couldn't see faces. You couldn't read faces. You couldn't hear laughter. That changed what the comedy experience was.
Yeah.
For those who had already done it and those who had never done it. And, I mean.
COVID made me, I agree. It we're going to look back, and it's going to be weird. In like 10 years looking back with a lot of distance from it, my God. But it made me appreciate the audience more. I used to be so fucking big-headed. They just don't get my jokes. I'm just smarter than all of them. And then when I had no audience, I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is a symbiotic relationship. Mm-hmm. This shit doesn't work if you're not there to listen. So it made me appreciate the audience more. But you dropped some shit and then just move right past it. You were doing COVID you were doing acid and what?
Well, I was working full time.
Okay.
I was living in a garden unit by myself. My parents are in Maryland. And I obviously fuck around with drugs and things like that, but it's just like I was just playing golf, riding my motorcycle, being outside, getting drunk, just fucking around, and I was like, all right, how long can I sit in this garden unit and do this? And it was not a dark time is the wrong word, but I think that the longevity of repetitiveness is what got frustrating. Because at first it was so many highs and lows where it's like so scary, don't touch anything, don't talk to anybody, and then Black Lives Matter where it was like all this fucking black emotion was going on constantly. And the day I drove back from Chicago was the day of the riots, where they put the bridges up and everybody got fucked up. I was literally driving back from Maryland.
I have a question.
Sure.
This is potentially going to sound accusatory. It's not meant to. Okay, that's my preface. What do you think is the difference between a riot and a protest, and why use the word riot?
That's funny you say that. Literally, it's just a matter of me being like half asleep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So shit's happening. Please continue.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, then all of a sudden it's like, and also the idea of what was going, and this is also like the idea of like financially how fucked we are as a country, where I'm selling cars.
Yeah.
And like these banks are just approving loans on like fake money that's not real. Yeah, people are getting fucking what do you call it? Unemployment checks.
Yeah.
These banks are approving loans, giving the car market was fucking crazy. How cheap cars were like, and they're just pushing us. They're like, keep selling these cars. I'm like, the economy is no one's going anywhere. Yeah. We live in a metropolitan city and everything's closed.
Yeah.
And it's like, who am I calling? Yeah. And then the people that were willing to take advantage of PPP loans and fucking finesse the system, God bless them. But it put a lot in perspective for me where I was like, what am I doing? I don't want to be a fucking salesman for these bank loans. And, don't get me wrong, the cars are quality cars. I'm not, a snake oil salesman. But it's just like, it's more so the actual ass backwardness of these guys have fake money.
Yeah.
They know it's going away. The banks know it's going away. We're giving them loans. We're pushing cars. I'm not making more money. I'm an essential employee for what? Yeah. For this corporation to keep pushing out their fucking inventory of vehicles to people that shouldn't be leaving their homes? It's fucking ridiculous.
You're an interesting guy.
I guess thank you. I don't know. Yeah.
It's and I keep saying this in this whole podcast. Like we don't know each other.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like I'm getting to know you right now in real time, and you are. I would describe you so far as kind of emotionally nuanced and intellectually nuanced. You seem to. You correct me if I'm wrong here. This is just my interpretation of you, but you seem to be a thinker. You seem to analyze a lot and think. I don't see you as passively taking in information. No,
absolutely not.
You also seem to want to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I do and don't. Someone asked me that the other day, where it's like, do you inherently trust people?
That's a good question. I should have asked you that.
It's a fun question, and I've been thinking about it for weeks since she asked it to me, but I was just like, it depends on what the situation is.
Okay.
When it comes to money, no.
Okay.
And again, like, it's hard to explain other examples where I would or wouldn't, but we live in a capitalist society, and if somebody tells me they're giving me a good deal, whatever the case is, chances are they aren't. If somebody tells me they're saving me money or whatever the case may be, chances are they aren't.
Yeah, they wouldn't have brought it up.
Yeah. There's no such thing as a good deal.
Ooh, okay.
Someone wins.
If someone's winning, someone has to lose.
Exactly. So the idea that this is like the housing market's the primary example of that. Where it's just,
So when it comes to money, you don't inherently trust people. Is there anything outside of that, or is there context where you're like, yeah, I will generally trust people in this situation?
I guess it's hard. It's hard to say. I'd say that I guess I don't trust people. I'd say that it takes a lot to know whether or not to trust somebody.
That's fair. It's
hard to assume trust without doing your due diligence. And again, like you said, the critical thinking aspect of it is important, and
I think I struggle with it because the empathetic side of me, I think I'm a fairly empathetic person, wants so bad for someone to get like, oh, I shouldn't be racist, or I want so bad for someone to do better if they got an alcohol problem, like knock that shit off, so on and so forth. But then my paranoia also comes into play, where too many things have happened to me where I can't just rely on this soft, squishy, empathetic side of me. And so I always struggle. I struggle with like who I can trust, why I can trust somebody. Should I even be trying to give someone the benefit of the doubt? It becomes real difficult.
I think it's easier to be a martyr for trustworthiness than paranoid by like someone like it's better for your own brain space. And it sucks because you're obviously the victim in it, where if you give too much trust, you're going to be the one who suffers.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that because I had so many different experiences with so many fucked up people, I'm cognizant of what level of fucked up exists, that I do recognize certain characteristics of, what do you call it, like abusive people or manipulative people, whatever these adjectives, words are that describe people that I've had those experiences with, where I'm aware of those things. So if something triggers, I'm like, that's a manipulation tactic. But
what is your when you meet somebody who gives that vibe or that energy, or they do something where your spidey sense tingles and you're like, okay, there it is. How do you approach it? How do you do with that?
Keep them at bay.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a certain level of respect and
being cordial.
Yeah. And again, it's the kind of same thing where we're in the entertainment business. We're gonna keep meeting a lot of assholes. We're gonna keep whether they're bookers or comics or whatever the case may be, we're gonna meet and talk to real scum fucks. And if I'm gonna choke slam every dickhead I meet, I'd be busy. So it's like, okay, I know I have to now figure out how to maneuver, how to handle the relationship where I'm not the loser in the situation. And again, it comes with, I think, adulthood, your own accountability, your own attentiveness. There's a lot of aspects of being responsible for your own well-being.
That's very, I agree. And I think that's a very mature way to look at it. You're responsible for your own well-being.
Yeah. So to allow an asshole to meet somebody, know they're manipulative, know they're a liar, know they're a thief, and then get robbed and cheated at, and then be like, what the fuck is wrong with this? Like, hey, man, like, the signs were there. We're all adults now. We're not kids anymore. Like, you learn what a scumbag is. You meet a liar. And again, it's very funny, like in the comedy sense, where it's like comics will come up to me and be like, they start talking. And I'm like, cool. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Yeah.
Because if they're talking about this person the way they're talking to me,
they're talking shit.
Yeah. Comics always talking shit, and it's like I said this to somebody the other night, right, a while back, but I was just like, anything I'm willing to say to somebody about somebody else, I'm not gonna be like, don't tell them I said this.
Yeah.
Anything I'm willing to say to you about Ty, you are more than welcome to say it to Ty, and he can be like, "Did you say that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did say that."
Yeah.
And that's like and I don't know. There's I think a lot of it's like not trauma dumping, but like tea spilling that people get off on, and they think it's like, if I spill a little tea for you, can you give me something? And then it's like it's a give back and forth thing, and I'm like, I got nothing to give you. Yeah. Give me what you want. It's not going to help you because...
My feelings on it are, I would much rather not know. Don't tell. If you don't like somebody, a part of it's rapport. So, for instance, there are people in the scene I'm not a fan of. I'm not going to tell you that shit. You don't need to know that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, and then people should come up to me and be like, man, what about this fucking guy? But doesn't hurt me, and
we don't know each other. And maybe if I don't know, after this we became best friends, and a year or two down the line, I'm frustrated about somebody, I'd be more willing to open up about that. But there's
a difference between opening up,
and
just shit talking for the sake of shit talking. And again, I deal with it more so than most because I'm working at Zanies, where it's like I interact with so many comics on a consistent basis as just an employee that they feel the need to like talk to me or ask me about certain things. And again, I have my friends that obviously there's and. Like I said, anything I'm willing to say to any of my friends, I'm willing to say to the person I'm talking about.
Can I ask a question about Zanies?
Sure.
How does one get booked at Zanies? There's no open mic, right?
No.
Okay, there's no open mic. There is, I won't say this person's name or their email or anything like that, but there's one person that I know of that you should email. Outside of that, how the fuck?
Just that, man.
That's it?
Just that, man.
God, that's a funnel.
You're talking to someone who works there who
Right.
doesn't get booked enough. So people hit me up there like, bro, how do I get booked at Zanies? I'm like, bro, how do I get booked at Zanies? What are you talking about, man? It's like, I'm cooking pretzels in the back for fucking minimum wage with no health insurance. You go fuck yourself before you cry in my DMs about, I gave you the email. I gave you the instructions.
Yeah.
And again, it's like people, and that's another thing too, where it's like the way people shit talk, not just Zanies, but every club, every booker. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I do not envy their fucking messenger requests, their emails, all that, the text messages they get to be at any comedy club. I do. Fuck that.
Everyone wants something from you. You never know who you can trust. Fuck that. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Speaking of comedy, I didn't want to forget this. So you did a special. You filmed something. Right? We talked about this.
Yeah, briefly. Yeah. Filmed the special at Zanies. Just a little bit less than 30 minutes. Ended up being 26:45 with the jokes I cut.
Okay.
But I just it's this weird thing with having like content out there, but knowing that I put these jokes together. And again, it's not even like I'm burning the material. Mm-hmm. The internet is a deep, crazy place. Even if 100,000 people watch it on YouTube, there's still 300 million people in America that haven't seen it. Mm-hmm. And even like people that we know that have specials that drop content constantly, they're like, people bring people to the shows to see jokes that they like. They're like, why don't you do like all that aspect of that? So it's like, if I can at least keep improving, burn, throw away the bad, keep refreshing the new, stay sharp. I didn't do any crowd work or anything like that. It was like I'm trying to work out these different muscles on stage where I'm like, okay, at least I have this act. Now I can kind of, reach out to different clubs and give me more extended time to build and build and build.
Where can we see your special?
YouTube.
Okay.
It's called That Colleague's Crazy. It's a little inside joke for the black people. I know what's up, yeah.
So I have another assumption, and I'm curious. Would you say you're an anxious person at all? I ask this because of the way you speak. You speak very fast. It's almost like you're trying to keep up your brain is trying to keep up with your mouth. Yes,
that's something I've dealt with my whole life.
Okay.
And that's something that I had to learn to work through in comedy.
Yeah.
Because it's if I spoke at a regular, I like when I started doing longer sets, I like just the idea of pacing and taking my time and things like that. Where like if I would have talked at a normal, healthy speed, my comedy special probably would have been 35 minutes plus.
Wow.
But I also, I don't know which one is moving faster.
Okay.
My mouth or my brain. And people say I've been told my whole life you talk fast.
Yeah.
Slow down. What would you say? And
I mean, I'm fine with how you speak. I just curious. Again, just figuring you out. Like this podcast has been really eye-opening in how unique and different every single comic is. Like, and trying to start a conversation kind of cold. We turn on the camera and here we are. It can be fun and interesting. You find out a lot about somebody, and it can also be kind of frustrating because I'm like, man, I don't know what angle to get at with you, but let me do the thing. But I don't know. I'm just pontificating.
No, I mean, I know what you mean. It's the hardest part about what podcasting is and should be. It's like there's a time constraint. It's like I'm basically an open book, but there comes down to where it's like, what can people say? What can they say? How do you get to really dive into what somebody is? And it takes a lot more than questions about, so how did you start comedy? It's like,
I usually start with that because we have some, there's a commonality, and then it goes into where it goes.
Oh, yeah.
But your do you still have that podcast that you started?
No, so I stopped that. COVID happened. The whole idea of inviting guests over went out the toilet. Right. Zoom interviews were not the move. I started a podcast earlier this year, and like again, that's why I appreciate what you do. Where it's like to know what goes into self-producing and doing all this on your own. Or it's like people hear and see podcasts, and they're like, "Let's start a podcast." And I'm like, "Who's gonna edit it? Who's gonna film it? Who's gonna monitor it? Oh, you want to just get high and talk? Well, who's going to watch the cameras? Because you know how easy it is to get high and not realize the batteries died or the mic didn't work, and then you just wasted 3 hours of everybody's time. And now, who's in charge of cutting and editing it? And then what goes as far as, what do you call it? Getting flagged or getting all these little that's why, people pay producers for a reason. And, no, it's just, I don't know, man. It's just everyone wants it to be so easy. They see a clip of some young people at Barstool talking, and they're like, let's do that. There's a lot of moving parts.
I'm so glad you said all of that because I could not agree more. Especially when, like, I think, and we were talking about this with dating, like women will see you on stage and they'll get the fun, exciting, interesting. The cool part of it is those 10 minutes you have up there.
Yep.
The work it took on your part alone to get to those 10 minutes is fucking crazy. On top of the building, the lighting, the sound, people paying tickets to be there. If no one was there, it wouldn't be funny.
The whole procedure of the actual room operation, getting sat correctly, it not being a bar show, them turning the TVs off, all these little things you have to overcome to make this a fun experience are very calculated and very specific. And the same thing goes with podcasting. The same thing goes with anything you do where there's a very... there's a lot of attention to detail in making a good production that people don't really take into consideration.
Yeah.
I can do that. Comedy's the only thing... Nobody watches Tiger Woods hit a hole-in-one and say, I can play that, I can do that.
Yeah.
People watch John Mulaney and Chappelle and they're like, I want to do that. It's like, all right, well, I mean...
Why? Why do you think that is? Because comedy is really hard.
Because everyone's made somebody laugh once. Everyone has.
Mm-hmm.
Toddlers make people laugh. And it's like, to watch that... and again, even with the way that a special... Like, the way that I, did my special, I didn't want to do anything editing audio-wise with, boosting laughs or doing all these little things like that. But, a special is a very different experience than being in the room and watching what a comedy show is. And I think that I lost my train of thought. I don't know. Special.
The mouth and the brain is all
over the place. Yeah, I know. This is the earliest I've woke up in a long time. Yeah.
Well, I gotta say I'm glad you reached. Did you reach out for me or did?
Yeah, we were at I call it Habibi, but for Jeff's birthday.
Oh yeah.
That's the first time I'd seen you in a while, and I was like, oh man, I enjoy the podcast, and I just I would love. Obviously, I'm down to talk shit and.
Well, this has just been so. I mean, we're gonna wrap it up soonish.
Cool.
But I just wanted to say, this has been you. Again, I don't know yet. So, but this is. I think I get you a little more. I think I know how to navigate you more. I think what has been good for me about this is. I fucking don't talk to people out in shows and mics because it's too fucking overwhelming.
My first 2 years, I didn't talk or hang out with anybody. And that's, I think, the thing that I attacked more once COVID did come back was putting myself out there more and, socializing. I had already partied and done all this fucked up, hanging out bullshit throughout high school and college that when I got to comedy, I was just all I want to do is, figure out how to be funny. Yeah. And all I was doing was bombing my dick off for the first... 2 years here where I was even to get one laugh at one mic was I'm not here to lollygag. And also I was working full time. There's a lot of factors that
you're focused.
That's all I cared about. And
do you know what you want? What is the dream situation for you as a comedian?
To tour, to be. Honestly, it'd be great to do things bigger than clubs. But if I could do 40 weekends a year at clubs, perfect.
So living off of comedy, being a bit of a road dog, and your main home is Chicago.
Not necessarily. In an ideal world, having enough of a draw to be able to live wherever I want.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. If I'd go back to Maryland and be on the beach chilling. I'd just jump on a plane, go to fucking Improv or a Funny Bone anywhere in the country. Yeah. And they say, I don't know if it's 20,000. There's a number where they're you only need 20,000 real fans.
Uh huh. If you have 100 fans and they all buy your thing for $10,
exactly, and so with comedy, it's if I can churn out an hour of material every year and a half or so, obviously I'd like to be financially secure enough to maybe start a family or settle down, all these fucking other bullshit things. But the real thing is I don't mind getting on planes, I don't mind going to new cities, I don't mind writing new jokes and working it all out. It's that's the scariest, most exciting part about putting the special out. I'm still obviously working on the jokes that I'm doing, but now it's the pressure to just throw away the ones that I absolutely hate and then tune up and change things. There's so many jokes I've been doing where it's a tag comes after everything's cut and edited. I'm fuck. Just throw it away. Let's do it again. I forgot to say, whatever the word is. And
it seems like you care about your craft and you have a simple but clear goal. And
to get this far in such a short time has been exciting. And again, it's also about holding myself back to the accountability thing, holding myself accountable for not being bitter. Because it does get hard. It does, it's putting a special out and be like, I need 100,000 viewers. Like, what's the happy number? What number makes me feel accomplished?
Yeah.
There's never going to be a number. All I have to do is know that I'm forcing myself to write jokes. I'm putting myself out there. I then have to be my own accountant, my own marketer, my own all these things. And it's like, don't get mad. Don't complain. Oh, the internet's making things hard. All these young kids and their TikToks are changing. All these crowd work clip guys. All this. Some hot girl with big tits has 1 million followers. It's like, I don't know. I can't change those things.
Yeah.
All I can do is manage my own mental well-being.
Yeah.
And,
I dig it, man. All right. This has been my favorite part of the podcast. Okay, so let's pretend the camera is you in 5 years. Okay. What do you want to say to yourself 5 years from
now? I hope you saved your money. Actually, no, I don't know. I mean, again, I hope in 5 years, I don't know, I'll be 32.
Yeah, you'll be my age, man.
32 in 5 years. I mean, I don't know, man. It's crazy to think about where my parents were at 32. My mom had me at 31. Don't get anybody pregnant in 5 years. Just don't do that. Don't do that. But I don't know, man. I just want to be making money, paying my rent, fucking stacking bread, cracking jokes. 5 years, yeah.
All right, let's take this picture.
Fuck yeah.